Welcome, everyone, to another edition of 45 Forward, where our mission is to help you, our listeners, from Los Angeles to Long Island, make your second half of life even better than the first. For people with disabilities, leading an independent life can be an extraordinary challenge at any age. But one proven way to help the disabled lead lives with greater independence is through the companionship of service dogs. In today's episode, we talk with Dorian Stern, the Director of Philanthropy for the Northeast region of Canine Companions, a national nonprofit organization that provides remarkable, highly trained service dogs to adults, children, and veterans with disabilities. Now in its 50th year, Canine Companions offers services at no cost to qualified individuals. Dorian, a self described altruistic cheerleader for her organization and other nonprofits, will describe how various programs work, how dogs are trained, and the various roles and services they can provide. She'll also explain ways people can get involved with their organization, from becoming a puppy raiser to volunteering for events like Dogfest. So now let's meet my guest, Dorian Stern. Dorian, welcome to the show.
Very warm welcome back to you.
Thanks for coming. So, what I like to do, Dorian, is before we start into the meat of the show, I like people to get a little background about my guest, and because it's 45 forward, and people have interesting lives as well as their careers. So, tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
Well, I, like many of us in the nonprofit sector, started in the for-profit sector.
Mm-hmm.
I worked mostly in sales and marketing positions, as is my usual shy and demure personality, which works very well in philanthropy. But exactly as I had shared with you in some of our earlier conversations, I was always that altruistic cheerleader, even in the for-profit sector. There's a great organization. They're doing amazing work in our community. And it's really good business to align with good causes. Their suppliers, their donors could be our customers. It's good PR, blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
And it was one of my colleagues who had said, Dorian, there's a whole other world out there called nonprofits. Maybe you should go work there. And in all candor, it really has been a very, very lovely transition because, especially what I'm doing, yes, I am selling something. I am cultivating new prospects, but
Mm-hmm.
instead of it being just for the bottom line, it's for the greater good. And
Mm-hmm.
nothing gives me greater pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's a greater bottom line, which is the overall welfare and health of society. So I'm with you. I'm with you. So now let's jump into the Canine Companions, and so tell us a little bit about the organization. How was it founded? What's its mission? How does it people keep people independent?
Yeah, it really is a remarkable operation to witness and to be a part of. So, just this past Friday, as a point of reference, we celebrated one of our four national graduations. This is our 50th year anniversary,
Hmm.
so there will be a lot of bells and whistles and excitement on top of what we ordinarily already do throughout the year. Um, but in a nutshell, to be as succinct as possible, which is
Hmm.
usually not my strong suit, by the way, um,
Hmm.
we are a national organization. We were founded in 1975. Our headquarters is in Santa Rosa, California, right outside of the Napa Valley area. Great place if you like wine, by the way.
Hmm.
Um, and that's really the epicenter of where it all begins.
Hmm.
That is where the breeder dogs that are picked from our families or community of dogs give birth to litters of babies, the little pups, that inevitably will be weaned from mom and that are flown to any one of the six
Wow.
national, regional training campuses like the one that I work for in the Northeast. So there are six individual campuses, and that's really where we handle, because it's a national organization, we all have our own territory of states. Mine,
Hmm.
for example, is from Maine all the way down to Virginia.
Mm.
So the puppies are flown to, let's say, my location, and they are met with somebody who has stepped forward in the most miraculous way to be a puppy raiser,
Mm.
volunteer, and they take on the responsibility and the tutelage and the socialization and the potty training of this little baby future hero who at 8 weeks old becomes their project, if you will,
Mm,
to socialize and acclimate and go to puppy workshops with. And they keep this adorable little dog for 18 months.
mm,
And then they hand it in. And they
mm,
give it in so that the dog now becomes matriculating into the full-scale program. I just witnessed it again this past Friday because at the graduation, it's not only a celebration, but it's also a new beginning. And
mm,
that's when the puppy raisers are handing in these dogs. And I don't care how big and macho those men might be, but there's one gentleman, this is the 19th puppy that he has raised,
oh, oh,
still cries every time he has to hand in a dog, but he has repeatedly said to me, Dorian, the best way to heal a broken heart, you get another dog right away.
right. So they raise the puppies, but they don't train them. So they hand it over to someone to train them to be service dogs.
Well, they are responsible for, let's call it preschool. They are
Okay.
responsible for basic socialization, teaching the dog how to at least adjust to walking on a leash,
Mm,
not to eat anything off the floor. They have nap time, and they do attend puppy workshop classes where they are taught basic skills. Sit, stay, lie down, give paw, shake, and don't bark. That's amazing. They
mm,
literally teach these little ones never to bark because inevitably that will be built on to one of the many commands that a true service dog of Canine Companions must be able to do. And
mm.
the only time a dog will bark is upon command.
Wow. Interesting, because we have a golden retriever, still somewhat puppyish. She's just 2, um, but she doesn't bark by nature. So I guess that's I don't know if that I guess that's indicative of golden retrievers, but I guess not of other dogs I
Because
know.
trust me, when they bark, it's a nice big woof bark, no
Right,
doubt.
right.
But yeah, it part of we'll go into it, I guess, further as as we chat, you and I.
Hmm.
But the main reason we don't want them to bark is in the event that the clients that are matched with our dogs need to bring it to a work environment or a
Right.
public environment, the dog should not be distracted and sound out in any way. The only time that the dog is going to be given the command for a bark is, I'm in trouble, speak. And that should be the alarm to anybody around that person. The only reason you're hearing my dog bark is because I need help.
Mm, interesting. Okay. So let's just talk about what are the free services that the organization offers or the dog offers. Yeah.
I'll tell you, that's what makes my adventure in fundraising so much fun because we give so much of what we do away for free.
Yeah.
The application to be a candidate client, if you will, to receive one of our dogs, that's free. No application fee. It's not like writing your college
Mm,
applications, right?
right.
And yet you never even
Mm,
get into the school. Um, the volunteer puppy raisers, we don't charge them anything for the right to be a puppy raiser. Frankly, the some of the preliminary expenses are really on them, and they see it as a donation of support for the organization.
right.
But I think the most miraculous freebie of what we do is once a client, and that could be, as you described, a child, an adult, or a veteran, is welcomed into our program and they are matched with a specific dog. By the time we're done, we've estimated between breeding and training and vet care and dog food and everything else, these little dogs are worth about $65,000, and we
Wow.
give them to the client for free.
Right. So how do people qualify? Who's eligible? I mean, you,
Excellent question. The key thing really is what are some of your challenges?
hmm.
Is it a physical issue? Is it a psychological issue? Is it a combination of both? In the event that you may be a child or a youngster, may be born with a certain disability, as much as we know that the service dogs will be of great value, a tremendous assistance to provide access and the freedom of independence, somebody must be able to be a facilitator to join you in on the training so somebody could take care of the dog. The dog is going to need to be fed, nails are going to get to be clipped, has to be bathed, has to be brought to a vet for shots. So that facilitator may be sort of a co-partner in the process, but the dog is specifically trained for you, that individual. And in the event of a veteran, there may be unique needs that have to relate to PTSD in addition to combat injuries or other situations like that.
Right. So once the dog is getting trained to be handed off, so obviously you need to interview the person, the recipient of the dog, and find out sort
Sure.
of a little bit about them and what sort of things they need. So I guess so. There's a process of like, is there a sit down interview, or I guess
Yes, not only do they fill out an application online, they are then interviewed on by phone by
mm-hmm,
the representatives in our program department, both of which happen to be MSWs, and they are asking very specific questions. What was their motivation? Why do they feel that a dog will be of great value? What are
mm-hmm,
some of the conditions or circumstances that they feel, based on what their generic knowledge may be, that they feel a dog will do? Um, and then they do a site visit at the home. They want to
okay,
see the condition that the dog and the person will be living in. Is there ample space? These are big dogs. If you're
mm-hmm,
living in a studio apartment and you have certain other equipment, it may be a little too crowded. Are you
mm-hmm,
living in an urban area? Have our dogs been trained to adapt to the noise and the sheer volume of people? So there is a process. And
mm-hmm.
unfortunately, it's well, let me re-say it that way. It's very fortunate that we are so due diligent, but it is unfortunate because it adds to the wait list of what it takes to really vet out the right client for the dogs that we have available.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you do that? I mean, let's talk a little bit about the dogs themselves. So how do you match the person with the dog, and what
It
kind of
is really a remarkable, I mean, again, I have the luxury of working here, so I witness it every day.
mm-hmm,
As I've already shared, so the dogs are first puppy raised by volunteers. At 18 months, they hand them in. That's when the training really begins. That's when the training staff, our dog training staff, who, by the way, are all following the principles of ADI, which is Assistant Dog International. That
hmm,
is the quintessential stellar uh, good housekeeping seal of approval when it comes to dog training land. They set the standards of how the dog is trained and how the trainers are trained to train the dog. Say
right,
that 3 times fast. Um, so there are very, very specific manners by which the dogs are trained, and they do it in stages. And there is a 2 semester program of 3 months each, and they're evaluating not only the dog's ability to follow the commands, but also just their general temperament. Do
mm-hmm,
they prefer men or women? How are they around children? Do they have problems getting into a room where there's carpeting in one room and tile in another? Do they like to walk upstairs but not take an elevator? Are they easily distracted by outside noises like an alarm or a car or a squirrel? And all of these things will really help to determine whether or not this dog is going to continue in their training. Then, simultaneous to this, the people in our client service department are advising the dog trainers, here are the people that are coming up in the next class. These are the situations and specific
mm,
circumstances that we're going to need dogs to be able to do. And in many instances, they may have a nuance of uniqueness in training a dog with the intention that it'll be the perfect match. It's kind of like a custom suit, if you will, that
yeah,
we're going to train all of the dogs with one level of generic um, um, standard, but there may be nuances that are unique based on the clients of this upcoming class.
yeah. And so it's always sort of a concurrent matchmaking process of both the dogs and then the person who's going to receive the dogs. And
I
um,
wish it was that easy for me to find a date in the dating world out there, but there you go.
yeah, yeah. And so what kind of dogs are these?
Oh, they're only labs or golden retrievers or a crossbreed of the two,
Hmm.
and they are magnificent dogs.
Wow.
They're specifically selected as other service dog organizations have done as well. Labs and Goldens, incredibly well even-tempered, very, very smart, very loyal to whoever is in charge. So if today I have the dog and I'm taking care of it for the weekend, they'll follow me implicitly. And then Monday, when I hand them back to the trainer, now it's whatever the trainer says. So they're very, who's ever got the leash, that's who they're very subservient.
Hmm.
And they're also very treat driven.
Right.
So you keep giving me a good, a gold star of a little nugget, and I will keep doing exactly what you want me to do.
Right. Yep. So I've discovered with our golden puppy, who's now 2, but she's still, and we're training her, but not as rigorously as you guys are. But she's a wonderful dog, but you need to train her, and she's subservient, but she can be willful when there's food around. And she's,
Definitely test you, and our dogs are taught, well, you stay within your boundaries. Don't forget everything we've taught you. But when they're off duty, when we are allowed to take off their service vest, we do encourage them to also just be dogs. Go
hmm
outside in the backyard, let them play, let them run, let them have time out. Because even like you and I, we can only work so many hours a day, and you need to be able to recharge.
yeah. And so how does that work? If someone gets a dog, what are the expectations of, the kinds of things that the dog will do? What sort of tasks does it do? What can it do? What it can't do?
Oh no, it is. I'll tell you, they're better trained than most adults now that I've really been out there a bit. I mean, first of all, they're just remarkably loving and non-judgmental, but specific tasks as an example, they can open a door, they can close a door, they can turn on the light switch in a room, especially where a veteran may have night terrors and can't enter a room of darkness. They
Hmm.
can create an immediate barrier between the person and, let's say, they're standing in line at a grocery store or in a public space. Again, maybe a veteran would have an anxiety of being in a large group setting, so they can create a barrier in front or behind the person. If they experience somebody going through a bit of an anxiety, what we call a tremor, the dog will jump up and lay across their lap. It has been scientifically proven that just petting a dog, just having the weighted blanket effect of these dogs automatically lowers your threshold of anxiety or well, obviously, concern.
Yeah.
For children, they have been able to pull off socks. They can help pull off a jacket. They can help brush their hair. They can bring a toy that the child can then throw so that there is some sort of pet relationship
Mhm.
interaction. They can pick up something as thin and as small as a piece of paper off
Wow.
the floor. They can hand medication bottles, asthma puffers. Um, it's really amazing. And everything is they're constantly looking at their partner, that's what we
Mm.
call them,
Mhm.
for the cue. Tell me what to do. Tell me what do you need. I'm right here. Just tell me what to do, and I've got you.
Wow.
I wish humans treated each other as well as these dogs do.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So how do they open a door? Do they just climb up and is it a latch lever that they press on? How?
Well, in the average home, if it's a round doorknob, we will tell the people we have other devices where they'll just stick it around the doorknob, and then there's a long tether, and the dog can literally pull the
Right.
knob, open the door with this tether, and then once you're inside, they stand up on their hind legs and they slam the door shut. They
Wow.
can't lock it, but they definitely can make sure that they've opened it and they've closed it.
Wow. Wow. Um, yeah, so what are some of the questions that people ask you about the dogs when they get them? What are the common things do they wonder about? Are they concerned about? Or
I think a lot of it is just that how customized
Mm-hmm.
how will this dog understand who I am and what I need?
Mm-hmm.
And we explain to them, while you've been interviewing for us to accept you, we've already been pre-planning which dog is going to be best for you based on your application. But
Mm-hmm.
some of the questions also are, you know, what can I do with a service dog? What can't I do?
Mm-hmm.
And I hope you don't mind, but I really do want to go into a little bit of depth on this.
Sure.
There is a critical need for all of us to understand that just because you can get a vest off of Amazon, for example, and it'll list service dog, that is not what a service dog is.
Right.
The service dogs really are a privilege that we should respect with authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that the dog itself is legitimately from a facility that trained it accordingly. And the vest that they wear is really a vest of honor. And
Mm-hmm.
it means that they are an authentically trained dog.
Right.
We want to make sure that people who need them are not going to be rejected from the public space that they are entitled to based on ADA, Americans with Disability Act. Anywhere a person with a disability brings a service dog, work environment, a place of worship, public space, transportation, wherever they go, the dog is allowed to go.
Mm.
Not every dog is really a true service dog. So, all of us, or any of us that may have just gotten a service dog vest for our pet Chihuahua, may I just say nicely, you're kind of doing a disservice to the authenticity of those that really do need a service dog.
Right. So there's a difference then. I guess I've heard the term to sort of a companion dog too. So they're companion dogs
Excellent
versus
point.
service.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And again, within our pack, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Not every single dog that we have trained, even though the puppy raisers did their best, and certainly the trainers do the same. It's a very rigorous program. And
Mm-hmm.
unless we are completely confident that this dog will meet the standards of what this person needs, they don't graduate. So we're not going to just let them go. We find another career path for the dogs, and they may become a therapy dog or a facility dog,
Oh,
but
okay.
they are not service dogs and they do not have the same privileges the way a service dog does to do all of that public access that I just described.
I
A
see.
therapy dog is just that. They're a lovely pet. They can be incredibly wonderful in the environment of, let's say, a library who wants to have a children's reading hour, but the kids are loud and distractive. If there's a dog sitting with them and he's sitting quietly and they can pet him, they'll be quiet and more attentive.
Mm-hmm.
A therapy dog could also come to, let's say, a mental health facility. Maybe a particular client is having a difficulty in a group session. Having the therapy dog there to pet, to just be a part of, but they are pets.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a facility dog is kind of one step above the therapy dog. They would work, let's say, in a rehabilitation center, an assisted living facility, maybe a school for children with special needs. They will encourage, they will be a part of the program to motivate, but the handler had to go through much of the same training that a service dog would, but the dog was not capable to meet the standard to truly be of service. They can work with somebody in a different setting, but we couldn't trust this dog to be able to complete the urgent needs that a person may need, and hence that's why they're a facility dog.
Right. So Dorian, where do people find therapy dogs or facility dogs as opposed to your service dogs? Are there other organizations that train them?
Oh, sure. Look, there are a lot of other organizations, many of which I have great respect and regard for. Um, Guide Dog Foundation is certainly an incredible
Okay.
organization, similar but different in the very simple fact that a guide dog in its pure form is
Mm.
really a service dog that's trained for somebody with a visual impairment.
Right.
So therefore, the training with that dog means that dog really needs to be able to make certain decisions that it knows are in the safety and best interest of the individual. In our case, the dogs are really looking to take a cue. I don't want to assume I know what you need. Tell me, show me,
Hmm.
point, tell me, pick up my phone, pick up my keys, open the door. The dogs are going to be waiting for a command. But in both instances, and there, like I said, there are many other organizations in this arena, and
Hmm.
some of them don't even begin to tap into the service dog element, but they can train a dog to be a therapy dog or a wonderful companion or a
Right.
facility dog. We've tried other things when we first started. Many people say, gee, there are so many beautiful dogs that are in the shelters. Why can't you give those dogs a second chance, a second career? The only problem with them is we don't always know their history. And though they may be incredibly beautiful animals, and certainly they deserve a second chance at life,
Mm-hmm.
um, unless we can vouch for their credibility and their background and their lineage and their health records, we tried it. It just didn't work to take a rescue dog and try to make it a certified service dog. This way, we control our own breeding. We know exactly what the principles are for the puppy raisers and the early preschool training they're getting.
Hmm.
And this way, we can really stand behind our commitment that when we say you're getting a service dog, trust me, it's it is the Top Gun of service dogs.
Right. Well, there's another path for these other dogs, so that they have alternative paths, and also, I guess for people too. Like you might say, well, what you really need is a therapy dog. You don't need a service dog, right? I mean, you differentiate for them as well.
Absolutely. And those have often been the instance. In some instances, there are, well, again, I want to be respectful of our time and our first
No,
date
no,
here
fine,
as
yeah.
new friends. Um, but our therapy dog program is very often carried forth by the puppy raiser whose dog didn't make the grade as a graduate service dog. And they are so devoted to that relationship that
Hmm.
they then take the workshops in order to transfer their career choice for
Hmm.
their pup into being a therapy or a facility dog. I'm telling you, the community here is unstoppable.
Hmm.
Once you're a part of the pack, we got you, man. You're in. And
Mm.
there's always new dimensions that you could follow.
Yeah. So tell me, how big is the pack so far nationwide? Roughly how many puppy raisers do you have and
Oh
trainers
my
and so
gosh.
forth?
We just did where do I have it here? Yep. Look at you. You're asking me questions and I already did my homework for you. Right now, we have 3,764 active graduate teams from last year alone. That's in
Hmm.
1 year. There are 548 working teams just from well, these are my region, by the way,
Oh,
just
okay.
the Northeast region. I have 1,658 in-person and virtual follow-up visits. By the way, that's it. We stay in touch with our graduates for the entire tenure of that
Hmm.
partnership,
Hmm.
8 to 10 years. It is a very handheld,
Wow.
very not intrusive, but it's supportive. We
Wow.
want to keep making sure the relationship between the dog we
Hmm.
gave you and what you needed that dog to do. Let's face it, if certain people's physical health changes, maybe
Hmm.
the dog needs to be re-taught certain things that are
Mm.
new in your particular situation. Right now, we have 1,426 puppies that are being raised by volunteers. Come
Wow.
on, Ron, you could step forward. Let's make that an even number. I'm right now, we have 4,484 volunteers,
Hmm.
and there are 57 volunteer chapters nationwide. And since we started in 1975, we have graduated 9,197 teams,
Mm.
which again may not sound like big numbers. It's quality, not
Hmm.
quantity.
Hmm.
It's the precision of what we do.
Right. Now, when you
That
say
is really
right, when you say teams, you're referring to.
that's a dog and a person has been matched.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
We call them teams because,
Yeah.
frankly, that's what they are.
Yeah. 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 Now, I know that you have some special programs we talked about before. I mean, in I guess colleges, and then you have it in prisons. So tell us about those programs.
Yeah, we are all over. We're trying to really expand different avenues, not only for the benefit of training the dogs, but also to attract a wider audience of participants. So the college program is really adorable. First of all, the name, the marketing here, adorable beyond words. It's called the Collar Scholars.
Oh,
So
wow.
very
Okay.
often a college club or college class, let's say somebody who's studying animal sciences. Maybe they're going to vet school. Maybe they're studying psychology, sociology, or maybe they're just a member of the fraternity, the sorority, or one of the teams, and they want some other community service activity on their college transcripts. They will adopt a puppy. And through a student advisor with us, they are told again about what it takes to raise the puppy. So, no keg parties or sorority pledging, but they get to actually be a part of the college environment. We've had some of our dogs that become the mascots of the football team, and there's all kinds of photographs with the puppies. And it is just, again, a phenomenal new environment for these dogs to be exposed to. Same thing with prisons. Usually we are working with the social work departments or those that are going to be working on some of the inmates who are soon to be paroled. And we have found that over the course of raising a puppy for about 18 months, having something to take care of, something to be responsible for, something that has a scheduled opportunity to do something more meaningful than just quote unquote doing your time has been amazingly influential in helping these recently released inmates really acclimate to civilian life. And the return ratio of them coming back to prison has fallen dramatically
Wow.
for any of those that have been involved in the program. Look, you know what? It all really boils down to this: dogs don't judge.
Mm.
And a lot of times people just need something or somebody else to believe in or for them to believe in, give them pride and purpose back. You do that, it's the biggest bandage with a wagging tail that you could ever find.
Indeed. So, how do you identify these prisons that want these programs?
Well, obviously, we do get quite a number who have applied to us. We
Mm-hmm.
do check on the logistics of where are they located.
Right.
Will some of our staff be able to easily gain entry into the facility? Who are we going to be reporting to? We want to know the backgrounds of the currently incarcerated individuals. How soon are they going to be paroled, if you will? Is there anything in their record that would give us a reason not to feel confident or trusting that they'll be able to complete the project? And then they have to be local volunteers that will handle the puppies on weekend outdoor visits because yeah, during the prison program, these dogs are living with these individuals. They're in the
Oh.
cell. It's 5 days a
Oh,
week.
wow.
But on weekends, we want somebody else to relieve the prisoner. I don't
Mm.
like to call somebody that, the inmate.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
that the puppy should also have a little bit of grass between their toes.
Right. So, in both the college situations and the prison situations, they're actually in the facilities before you know,
Right,
before
and
they
we're
graduate.
deliberately choosing this for the benefit of the people that are raising it. It gives them, that's their experience, like I said, with the
Mm-hmm.
college students and with the inmates. But for the dogs, it's also a really, really unique opportunity for them to be exposed to very, very different types of environments,
Mm-hmm.
which again would lend themselves to the eventual goal of how they might be assigned to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
There have been discussions, which is why part of the prison program was launched. There are prisoners that may really benefit from having a service dog as a roommate
Mm-hmm.
during their time. And if that's the case, then maybe it's important for us to have a dog that's experienced it in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. So how many inmates so far are have been placed with dogs?
Well, in our particular region, it's been a rather small program only
Mm-hmm.
because we really want to be very, very selective
Sure.
of which ones. So right now, I think there's only been about 12 or 15.
Okay.
But on a national scale, sorry, you know what? I don't really have those numbers.
That's okay. It's a start, you know. Anything helps, you know,
The
reduce the
college
risk.
program has been a lot more successful. We've
Okay.
had some incredible response with St. John University. I know NYU had done it. And again, my region is pretty big. So I'm all the way from Maine down to Virginia.
Right.
So what do I have in my midst? Oh, Harvard and Yale and all the big Ivy League schools up
Mm-hmm.
there, in Jersey and in Boston, and a lot of the state schools. If anything, we've gotten more inquiry from the schools than I have puppies that want to go to school right now.
Wow.
I think
Interesting.
they're very particular about which team they want to be a part of. That's what it is.
That's right. That's right. Um, any interesting stories you want to share about interesting placements or situations in which you've created teams or any
Well, how
surprises
many
you may?
hours more do we have to talk?
Well,
I'm
we have
teasing.
we've got a good 20 minutes. We have time. We
Well, I will tell you, there are two stories that really do jump out at me, and
uh-huh.
obviously, out of deference and respect to the clients, I won't mention names, but
Sure.
I can speak generically
Mhm.
and tell you why I'm so lucky to be here.
Mhm.
And that as much as this is a job, and I do have quotas, and I do have expectations, and it is discretionary money that I have to be very charming and do my research and my background. And I often say that being in fundraising, it's kind of like being a shoe salesperson
Mhm.
because I have to find what fits not only
Okay.
for what I want to sell, but really what fits that donor. But
Right.
I digress. Your question was share some good stories. So here's one. This was a gentleman who was a veteran, young gentleman. He was in
Mhm.
Iraq. There was an IED, and there was some severe casualties and injuries. And I believe he lost both legs
Mm.
and unfortunately was stuck in what was left of his Hummer until they could get him out and whatever. You can imagine the
Mm.
carnage.
Yeah.
A lot of physical therapy, a lot of psychological effects being a young guy, and his entire life changed. Now,
Mhm.
literally, dramatically physically disabled. Um, Went to a couple of treatment centers for the physical issues as well as the psychological issues. And I heard from others that, he was often very despondent
Mhm.
and often said, you know what, I have no reason there's no reason why I should have made it because what have I got to look forward to?
Right.
And every day there was a real debate about whether or not it was going to be his last day because there was no reason to
Right.
exist anymore. This was a sentence. And then somebody told him about us, and somebody encouraged him to apply. And somebody saved his life because he did get accepted and he thrived under the program. And I remember witnessing him at graduation. And again, I always
Mhm.
want to be respectful, but I certainly knew enough of the background. And he said, he goes, it's amazing. Now I know I'm going to be able to go back to living.
Mhm.
And the main reason is people are going to see this dog and the partnership that I have, and they're not going to ever pay attention to the fact that I don't have any legs.
Mhm. Wow.
So that's kind of powerful to me
Yeah.
that something as beautiful and as innocent as a dog who is beautiful and innocent in their own
Mhm.
right can really neutralize our presumptions about people with a disability. There may be parts that have been injured, but there is still a whole soul in there.
Right.
And be respectful, be kind, because if our dogs don't judge, neither should you.
Right.
And I
Right.
didn't mean you in the literal
Right.
sense.
No, no. I see. Yeah. Um, Along similar lines, anything that surprised you in getting involved in this whole thing? Things you didn't expect?
Um, I think just what I'm in awe of literally
Mm-hmm.
is the capacity that our trainers have in talking dog. I mean, to be able to take these animals who already have the propensity, it's their breeding, it's their disposition,
Mm-hmm.
it's their nature. Um, but when I see the relationship that they have cultivated and the ability that the dogs demonstrate, yeah, I know what you want. Let me show you. I know how to do it. Let me show you. Let me show you. Let me show you. And then to pass that dog on now to another person, and
Mm-hmm.
in 2 weeks, after the 6 months that they've worked with a trainer, that dog is automatically, or I should say, over a 2 week period of time, is going to synchronize with an entirely different person and remember everything that the trainer taught it to do. These are amazing dogs. I don't think I could pay, I think they'd get a better score on their SATs than I did. I mean, that's an amazing accomplishment.
Right. So just remind me of the timeline. So in terms of the dog is with a puppy raiser, and they're
Right.
with a puppy raiser for about how long?
18 months.
18 months. And then they go to a trainer. And how long with a trainer?
So it'll be 2 semester, total 6 months of training for the
Okay.
dogs.
Okay. Okay. And what about the training the trainers? How long does it take to train them?
Oh my God, years. Because
Mm.
again, according to Assistant Dog International, there are stages that they must be able to go through. They have to take an exam. The other trainers evaluate how well. I mean, this is it's like getting your captain's license for a
Yeah.
ship. I mean, it's a pretty major undertaking. Um, but it all starts with the love of dogs, and many of them studied either animal behavior or animal
Hmm.
sciences or psychology. Um, and maybe they just have a better rapport with dealing with
Mm.
canines than they do with humans. But thank God they do.
Mm. Now, are there like ADI institutes, or where do they
Well,
get
the
the
ADI
training?
standards come here. They
Okay.
evaluate our trainers. They give them refresher courses,
Okay.
and the trainers will have ADI visits with the graduates over that 8 year period that they're matched with the dog to make
Hmm.
sure that the client is maintaining the standard of training that they trained the dog to have. So
Hmm.
we're constantly reinforcing it's not just get the good housekeeping seal of approval, it's get it renewed every time we
Mm.
see you. Make sure you're staying within those standards. It's
Right.
the only way that we've been able to build the kind of reputation that we have, which is legendary.
Right, right. So I'll mention this again at the end of the show, but I know sometimes people need a couple of times to hear this. So I want to just take a quick break now and just have you tell people how to get in touch with you, what the organization, what the website is, or certain times to contact you. So tell us about how people can get in touch with you and find out more
Sure.
about you.
Well, I mean, even though it's become like maybe as antiquated as mailing, here's my email,
Okay.
and that is D as in Dorian.
Mm-hmm.
My last name is Stern, Stern, at canine, really easy, .org.
Mm-hmm.
My office number is area code 631
Mm-hmm.
561 0236,
Okay.
and I'll even give you my cell phone, but only if you email me or call me first.
Okay. All right. So, and I think that will be up on my website too. So, roboresources.com. And then you click on 45 forward, and then the top episode will be you. And then you'll have a little background about you, and then your contact information will be there as well. So,
Sure.
I'll say that again at the end of the show. But good. Well, yes, I know sometimes people, it takes a couple times for them to remember, find a pencil, whatever, and so forth, write it down. Um, so, let's just broaden a little bit. So, you and I talked about this in a previous conversation, but I'm just interested too, obviously in the dogs themselves. But is there, um, you've worked in the nonprofit field, and are there lessons that you take away from this whole process about therapy dog treatment, or service dog treatment that could be extended sort of to healing social wounds in general in our society and community?
You know what? Whether you work with us for the dogs,
Mm-hmm.
if you have the opportunity to be of service, let's stick with that. I'll
Okay.
pull the word service and away from dog. There are so many incredible organizations out there. I've had the pleasure of representing some of them here in the local Long Island area. Um, just get out there and do something. Find something that resonates with you, either on a personal level or you know somebody who's benefited or could benefit by the services of the organization. It's really magical because once you're in an environment of something that resonates with you, oh my God, look at all these people you'll have something in common with. And you just are automatically welcomed. And what has always been literally awe-inspiring to me about the nonprofits is we get so much done on such humble salaries and
Mm-hmm.
overhead and everything else where, we get donated product, we get donated goods and services, and we have volunteers that are the backbone of our organizations
Mm-hmm.
that cost us nothing, but they share their abundance of time and talents. And
Mm-hmm.
I cannot think that any corporate America couldn't run as efficiently as nonprofits do. Well, they don't, in my humble opinion.
In your opinion, right? That's a good opinion. So, um, so let me just ask you about that a little bit more. Because I think there isn't enough connection between the profits and nonprofits. Um, and I think there could be more collaboration and also recognition of how the skills are transferable. So you mentioned earlier that you were got a lot of your training in communications and marketing from the for-profit world. Um, how much is transferred in your experience from the people who work for your organization from the profit world? Are there a number of people who come over?
Oh God, yes, especially now because nonprofits in a lot of ways, they are their own little businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So we look for people with an artistic background. If you're a graphic artist, obviously, if you're a social media maven and you know all how to set the algorithms and all the different platforms and the different levels of communication, if you've had a background, even just on a humble level, if everybody in your family comes to your house for the holidays because you're an amazing cook and a great
Mm-hmm.
hostess, well, then come volunteer and get involved with our event committees. Uh, there's something for everyone. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
again, that's what's so lovely about the nonprofits. There are so many different pathways and channels that a lot of the cogs in our machine, there's a place for everybody to
Right.
share their follow your heart
Mm-hmm.
more than your pocketbook, because that's really what drives most nonprofits. We operate with a mission, a purpose, a cause, a calling, an audience, a problem that needs to be solved.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking for volunteers that may not have all the answers. Like I often say to donors, I'm never saying that one person has to do it all,
Mm-hmm.
but all together, we really can do something.
Right. Right. I know you that some of the other experiences you had, you worked for Peace Studio and Community Housing Innovations. Just
Right.
tell me
And
a
on
little bit about
the,
that.
some of the other organizations, again, if your audience is more Long Island based, I had the honor of working for the Cinema Arts Center, for
Mm.
the Inn in Hempstead, for Island Harvest. So, it's not uncommon for, especially in the role that I have, I'm selling the mission, I'm selling
Mm-hmm.
the programs and the projects. I have to be sold on what I'm selling. So I've gravitated personally to organizations that I've either supported individually or that I just have an affinity for what
Mm-hmm.
they do. And it's easier for me to convey that story because I can talk in the I instead of the you.
Right. Now, so our program is 45 forward, so it does focus on as we come to middle age, how do we keep a sense of purpose, often through volunteering as we get older in life and want to continue that sense. Um, do you find that a lot of your volunteers are looking at this sort of experience as they get older, or I guess you probably have all ages of volunteers, but
Yeah,
I
no doubt. For whatever reason, um, people come to a certain point in their life where money and career, and again, it's a generational thing too. I
mm-hmm,
think the boomers and those a little bit older than them, um, really want to still have a reason to get up in the morning, have a
mm-hmm,
have a schedule, have a routine, have a purpose. Um, it's also maybe in certain instances. Maybe they've outlived their partner, their children are self-sufficient and independent,
mm-hmm.
and there's just so many, games of canasta or mahjong you can play,
Right.
so many early bird specials you can do. So getting involved with the next tier of new friends and like-minded people. With us, it all starts with, do you love dogs? If
Mm-hmm.
you love dogs, I trust me, we'll find a place for you.
Right, right. Yeah, and you talk about, there is a certain magic to the being part of this community, part of the pack in a positive say. It's a pack, not a cult. So but you
Well,
do
I'm
have to have,
using the colloquialism obviously as dogs in a
right,
pack.
right.
So, but I assure you, nobody is too wild. Well, I am, I think. But none of us bite, none of us growl. Most of them are wagging, and there will be treats, I promise. Even if you don't sit and stay, we'll still give you a treat.
That's fun. That's fun. Um, Again, so are there any demographic trends? I mean, are there, I guess, gender, more women, more men, or more?
No, I'll tell you the truth, it's really pretty evenly keeled.
Mm,
A lot of men who are single and they just love the breed. Whether they may have been more outdoorsy in their younger days, they were fishermen, they were hunters. Oh, I love labs. Oh, you don't have
right,
to
right.
tell me. I know the breed. Oh, yeah, great dog. Um, and the women, they just love the beauty of the animals and um, women traditionally are a little bit more nurturing, so
Mm-hmm,
they love being able to be the mother or the
mm-hmm,
grandmother to these little baby dogs.
right.
And they're very often the volunteer puppy raisers. That seems to be, I guess, if I were to segment the demographics,
Mm-hmm,
the women seem to be a little bit more driven in raising the baby pups, but the
mm-hmm,
men love being the foster dogs. They love coming and helping at the events. They love helping the trainers very often are looking for volunteers to interact during the training of the dog because we want the dog to be um, acclimate, I should say,
right.
to either a man or a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And, just the size, the sound of the voice. So we're really an equal opportunity canine companion source.
Nice, nice. Yeah, it's something that I'm really gratified to have you on this show because it's just, yes, I we have a dog now. We didn't have one for many years. But when I was
I
growing
got
up,
a puppy for you.
yeah. We have enough of a puppy now. She's a great puppy.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, there is something about, well, certainly one of the things that we talk about a lot today is what's called an epidemic of loneliness. So
Yeah.
these dogs are, yes, they're different levels. You said you can be companion therapy, a service dog, but in general, I think people need companionship. They need to be cared for. So it's part of, I have this book called The Caregiving Navigator, which is about caregiving for mostly your older parents as they get older. But it's about being cared for. And I think that care and that love and that non-judgmental aspect of it, I think is really critical. So that's really nice. Um,
And I just think, like anything else, it's also, um, as we get older, maybe our lives have changed. Maybe we're living
hmm
in a different place than where we grew up and we raised our families. Or sadly, maybe there isn't that much family left anymore.
hmm
Um, you can have a new family in the community. I mean, we have puppy raisers here who keep track of who the breeder dog was and who the dog wound up graduating with, and then they become a member of that family.
hmm
And I mean, I've seen where the puppy raiser gets invited to weddings and is walking down the aisle with the next puppy that they're raising because the person who's being married has got the graduate dog as a part of his wedding album,
Wow.
and now that puppy raiser is raising the next puppy, and there's more puppies at a wedding than there are people. I mean, it's absolutely magical, and we're very welcoming. Like I said, it really all just starts with, do you love dogs? If you love dogs and you can believe in the essence, if I could leave you and your audience with one thing, dogs love all. So long as you are kind and gentle to them, they will pay it forward 1,000 times over. As human beings, could we just be more like dogs and just wag more and bark less?
That should be your T-shirt. Wag more, bark less. I like it.
Well, I assure you it's not original, but I think that's a beautiful way to end this gorgeous conversation with you. In life, just wag more and bark less.
Right, right. So before we go, I just want to once again very quickly remember how people get in touch with you. D Stern at canine.org, right? And
That's
that's
correct.
the website is canine.org, so people can look up their services there and connect with you there as well. So I want to just thank you, Dorian, for a terrific show. I really appreciate it. And and people can find it again on my website, roboresource.com, 45 forward tab. So once again, folks, if you missed my conversation with Dorian today, you can find it there. And next week, I'll be talking with Michael Mannix and Sal LaGreca. They're the co-authors of the five L's: love, laughter, labor, leisure, and love. So join us next week. And until then, folks, keep moving forward, 45 forward.